If you're somebody that's smoking a lot of weed, there's a really good chance you're not where you want to be in your life. And today I'm going to share 5 lessons, 5 positive things that happened after I quit weed over 16 years ago. Number one is I stopped sabotaging and self destructing my life. When I started to smoke weed, I noticed how much better it made me feel about myself, and I use it as a coping mechanism. And while that felt good in the short term, it also came with some negative side effects and benefits. I wasn't able to concentrate as well in school. I started hanging out with the wrong crowd. My relationships with my family got really poor. I developed a negative self image and low self esteem. I just didn't feel good about where my life was headed. And so once I started to realize that my life was falling apart, I started to justify and rationalize poor decisions in my life based on the fact that my life was already beginning to fall apart and self destruct, and I didn't have a positive outlook on where my life was headed. So I justified smoking more weed. I justified selling weed. I justified graduating to doing harder drugs. I justified hanging out with the wrong crowd. I justified taking shortcuts in life. I justified not having good relationships with my family because my life was already falling apart. And so, because of the fact that I started to see myself as a failure, I just automatically assumed that I was going to fail at life. So, what was the point of trying to improve my life and make better decisions? And a lot of this stemmed from me smoking weed. Because when I started to smoke weed, I started to use it as a solution to numb emotional pain. So my life started to fall apart, and I started to rationalize and justify all of my decisions thereafter because I had already curated a negative outlook on life. And so I began to self destruct. I began to self sabotage. And for those of you that are familiar with my story, my self destructive habits eventually led me to having a horrific Oxycontin addiction where I was snorting hundreds of milligrams up my nose every single day to support my habit. And eventually it landed me in jail on felony drug charges when I got arrested with a bunch of weed and a bunch of money when I was on my way to make a drug deal. And so I share that because my inability to deal with pain, my inability to have a positive outlook on life gave me this mindset that I might as well just self destruct and make my life worse because I had no faith or hope that my life was going to get better. And so when I got to jail, my life turned around drastically with the help of my cellmate who got me into fitness. And that was the last day that I did drugs, is the day that I went to jail. And getting fit in jail saved my life. And so when I got out of jail and I no longer was using weed as one of the crutches in my life, I started to work out in jail. It gave me a positive outlook on life. It improved my self-esteem. It gave me self-discipline. It helped me get comfortable being uncomfortable so that when I got out of jail, the tendency to want to self-destruct went away because now I had built this positive frame of mind where I had the confidence to know that my life was going to get better if I just continue to do the next right thing. If I continue to focus on the positives in my life, if I continued to do everything that I could to get better each and every day. So the first lesson is that I stopped self-destructing my life after I quit weed, and my life got so much better. Number two is I developed real self-confidence, not fake self-confidence. I'm talking real self-confidence. And like I mentioned, I used weed when I was younger as a coping mechanism and as a means to solve emotional pain. I also used it as a really poor coping mechanism to deal with stress and anxiety. And I used it to get comfortable being around people, to fake confidence, to fake self-esteem, to give me this persona that I was quote unquote cool, when really on the inside, I was battling. I was struggling because I knew I was kind of being fake. I knew that I really wasn't that confident. I knew that I really didn't have this great self esteem that people thought that I had. I knew that I was yearning inside to be a better person. And the weed masked all of that for me. And looking back now, it not only gave me this fake self confidence, it made my confidence way worse because I felt so poorly about the fact that I was, in my mind, different from other people and having to use a substance to feel good about myself and to be charismatic and to fit in and to be social and to have friends. And because I developed a tolerance to it, it impacted my ability to become a confident person long term because my brain and my physiology got so used to using this thing to socialize and to interact with other people that it took a lot of time to unlearn that. And so when I got out of jail and I got into fitness and stuff, it took time to improve the way I interacted with myself, the way I interacted with other people. It took time to be out socially and to not be awkward because I was no longer under the influence of a drug like that. But what it did for me is it allowed me to build real confidence because I shifted my focus from doing everything I needed to get high on a substance like weed to putting my energy into things like fitness and working out and bettering myself, which builds confidence. I put my energy into hanging around with people that were going somewhere in their lives and that had a positive outlook on their future and that wanted to make a difference. And therefore, my self-esteem and self-confidence improved. My self-confidence also improved because I let go of the shame of needing to use something to make me feel better about myself and be able to interact with the world on a social level. It also helped me build confidence when I quit because I was finally able to stay disciplined and do the things that I know I needed to do and feel like I was contributing to society in a positive way. When I was doing and selling drugs, I was contributing to society in a very negative way, right? Selling drugs and doing drugs on a daily basis is not a great way to show up for society and feel like you're creating an impact. And when all of that went away, I felt like I was not only getting back on the right foot, but I was starting to take steps into becoming the person I wanted to become and making a difference in other people's lives, building real confidence. I also began to understand what I wanted in my life and what I stood for and what I wasn't going to stand for and the life I wanted to live, which in turn helped me to build true self-confidence because I developed awareness about what I really wanted in life and the person that I wanted to become. Number three, my relationships improved drastically for a few reasons. Number one, when I was getting high all the time when I was younger, I was lying to myself. I was lying to other people. I was hanging around the wrong crowd. I felt like I had to constantly like hide what I was doing from my family members because I was so embarrassed. I knew I was doing something that wasn't in the best interest of me and other people. And that led to, me being kicked out of my mom's house when I was 16 years old, being kicked out of my dad's house right after I graduated high school. It led to a lot of damaged relationships with my family. And most importantly, it led to a damaged relationship with myself because, like I explained earlier, I started to develop low self-esteem, a negative self-image. My anxiety got really bad, had a hard time dealing with stress, was depressed, just didn't have a positive outlook on life at all. I hated myself. I hated myself at that time because I knew that I deserved better. I knew I was making poor decisions. I knew that the life I was living wasn't in line with the potential that I had. And I just knew I was letting myself down. And so after quitting weed, my relationship with myself improved dramatically because I was no longer wearing this mask and having to hide this lifestyle from other people and taking away from the person that I wanted to become. My self esteem started to improve because I was no longer having to use this thing to deal with a lot of the pain in my life. I found positive ways to deal with the pain that I experienced and the pain that I had gone through during my younger years. And I also improved the relationship with myself because I wasn't having to try to fit in with other people for them to like me, right? I realized that when I was, smoking a lot of weed, I would fit in with other people, even though I knew they probably weren't the best people to be spending time with, just because I wanted to be liked by other people. After quitting weed and that went away, I no longer had to fit in with other people because I began to work on myself and figure out what I wanted for myself and improved my own self image, my self worth. That changed the types of people that I wanted to spend time with. I've said this a number of times that your environment can create a false sense of normalcy, right? And so if you are spending time with people that all they do is make poor decisions and do drugs, you will begin to think that's normal. My sense of normalcy completely changed after I quit smoking weed. I began to realize not only who my true friends were, but I also began to understand, like, wow, what I was doing was not normal. That is not the norm. And I started to develop and create a new normal for my life. And the new normal for my life now is obviously way different than what it was over 16 years ago. Now I do my best to spend time with people that have common futures and not common pasts, people that are into health and wellness, people that are into personal development, people that are into making a difference in the world, people that love, support, and challenge me unconditionally. It's not to say that I only hang out with people that pat me on the back. Like, no, like if you're in my life, I want you to challenge me and check me if I'm not doing the right thing. Right. And so the types of people in my relationships changed in that way as well. The relationship with my family got so much better. I rekindled the relationship with my mom. The relationship with my dad has improved dramatically. The relationships with my brothers has gotten better as well. And a lot of that I can attribute to quitting weed over 16 years ago, because the lies went away, the hiding went away, the not being able to regulate my emotions went away, the not being able to deal with stress in a way that was healthy went away, the blaming other people for my problems went away, in turn, making my relationships better, specifically with my family. And it took time, didn't happen overnight. But because I took a lot of the energy that I was using when I was getting high and put that into working on myself and developing an identity of what I wanted in life and developed habits and behaviors that reflected that, I was able to then like prove to other people that I was changing and getting better. And so people wanted to spend more time with me. And so my relationships got so much better. I was able to build trust. I was able to get along with other people in a much better capacity. And they just changed so much for the better. The fourth thing is my habits got better. I think there can be a direct correlation between people who smoke a lot of weed and their habits. So for me, when I was getting high and smoking a lot of weed, that became a lifestyle. And that lifestyle for me looked like riding around all day with my friends, not showing up to commitments, not showing up to class, and just getting high all day, every day, and eating poor food, eating very unhealthy. I mean, my meals at times would look like something like a foot long cheesesteak with like 3 or 4 slices of pizza, followed by a bunch of ice cream. And then I would do that a few times a day. Right. And I also, at the time, was 50, 60 pounds heavier than I am now with 40% body fat. So me smoking weed caused some other health issues that I developed when I was younger as well. And so my habits were so bad. And it goes back to the beginning, which is I think I justified a lot of my poor behavior on the fact, because of the fact that my life was already starting to fall apart. And I started to say to myself, well, if my life's already starting to fall apart, I might as well just destruct these other areas too. And so my habits were horrible back then. I was also smoking a pack of cigarettes a day, sometimes a pack and a half of cigarettes a day. I was sleeping in until like 2, 3 p.m. every day. I couldn't keep a job. I mean, I had 21 jobs by the time I was 21 years old. 21. Because getting high and selling drugs became more important than keeping a job back then, right? I had no discipline. I had no integrity. The weed came first above all else. And I attribute some of that to just the nature of the lifestyle of weed and how it's kind of celebratory, and you go out and you eat after getting high with friends, etc. The munchies is real. And after you get high, you're super hungry and you're looking for the processed food. You're looking for the chips. You're looking for the dessert. And that, contributes to, more unhealthy habits and more health problems as well down the road. And so, like I said, like my habits were just so poor back then. And these bad habits really started to get exacerbated after I started to smoke weed. And then they got worse over time with the more weed I smoked and the more drugs I sold, etc. And when I went to jail and I quit weed, started to work out, my habits changed because what I was focused on also changed. And now that I had built self confidence and realized that fitness was helping me to improve my life, I started to say, okay, like I have this habit that I've developed, the fitness thing. I've gotten rid of these unhealthy habits. What are some other healthy habits that will reflect the fitness thing? What are some of the other people doing who are fit? How are they eating? So I started to change the way that I ate. I started to eat better. These people are also disciplined in getting up early. So I started to get up a bit earlier. I wasn't, sleeping in till 2, 3 p.m. anymore. Right. I also said, like bouncing from job to job when I was younger before I went to jail is not a good thing. How can I improve that? Well, coincidentally, because I had developed some self discipline in jail through fitness, I had started to realize that, oh, like it's important to show up to commitments in life. It's important to show up to things even though you don't feel like it, right? So you see where I'm going with this. So now I was able to keep a job because I wasn't like, oh, I need this weed. I need to go sell this weed or whatever the excuse was. I need to leave right now, or I need to not show up, or whatever the case may be. That went away. And so I was able to keep a job. And then my life got so much better afterwards. And then I went on to, become a personal trainer. And I've been a personal trainer for over 14 years. And now obviously I'm doing the podcast, which I've had for going on almost 5 years, and doing what I'm doing now. But it all started with me quitting weed when I went to jail and beginning to get that motivation and inspiration to change my habits. And so obviously now I eat very healthy. I surround myself with great people. I get up in the morning. I show up to my commitments. I'm not smoking cigarettes anymore. I mean, my life is so much healthier now than it was. And I believe it's a result of me quitting weed, finding fitness in jail, and then having that be the catalyst for improving the other habits in my life. So that's number 4. Number 5 is I started to find meaning and purpose in my life. When I was smoking weed and selling a bunch of weed, I thought that was going to be my career, was going to be to do nothing but sell weed and do drugs for the rest of my life. And therefore, like I said, that my choices reflected that thereafter. After my cellmate got me into fitness when I was in jail, that inspired me to continue the journey and to get out of jail and to continue to better myself. And I started to work out on a daily basis, followed a workout plan that he gave me the day I left jail, and I lost a bunch of weight. And then I got to a place fitness wise where I was like, I've seen how much fitness and living a healthy lifestyle has had an impact on my life. I want to pay it forward and help other people do the same. So I became a personal trainer back in 2011. And passion went from, doing a bunch of drugs before I went to jail to now wanting to help other people change their lives. And I found so much joy, so much meaning in doing so, because I felt like I was taking the baton that my cellmate had given me the day I left jail, and I was passing it on to these other people that I trained. And it gave me so much joy and fulfillment because I feel like I was starting to right the wrongs I had made in my life. And I feel like there was meaning and I began to feel like there was meaning in my pain, because I was now taking some of the dark parts of my story, not feeling good about myself, not feeling good about my life, not having a positive outlook on where things were headed, not being healthy at all, and now being able to take that and kind of transform it to help my clients. Because a lot of these people felt the same way, and I felt like I could use the lessons and wisdom that I had learned in my journey to help them, and built a really successful personal training career. And because of that, I got inspired. I got inspired to start sharing my story and to give people hope. People really appreciated when I shared my story, and they felt inspired. They're like, you know what? You have to do this more often. You have to talk to more people because people need help. People need hope. People need to hear words of encouragement. So I started to share my story more and more, and the feedback was tremendous. And that inspired me to keep going, to keep sharing my story, and to get on podcasts and to do media and to speak at schools and share my story and give people encouragement and share the lessons that I learned along the way. And that obviously has been also a big inspiration for why I started my YouTube channel and the podcast, to provide inspiration and hope for people and to share my story, to give other people hope. Because I know there's a lot of people that are struggling right now, a lot of people that are battling addiction. And I just hope that sharing my story and helping other people can just inspire people to change and not give up on themselves. So now I have so much meaning in my life and what I do. And it's all because of me going to jail and quitting weed and the substances that I was abusing. I'm always on the run, so having healthy snacks on hand are a must for me. That's why I love Paleo Valley and their beef sticks. They are 100% grass-fed and packed with protein. My favorite flavor is definitely the teriyaki, and if that's not your jam, the jalapeno and original are banging as well. If you're looking for a great snack on the go, click the link in the description to save 15% off Paleo Valley meat sticks. Now back to the show.